Welcome to Real English Voices. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode where we help you improve your English listening skills through natural, interesting conversations. I am Tom.
And I am Ria. Hello, listeners. It is so good to be back here with you today. Tom, I have to say, I am really looking forward to today's topic. It is something we all think about probably every single day.
You are absolutely right, Ria. Today, we are diving deep into a very popular but sometimes controversial topic. We are talking about the truth about money and happiness.
Oh, the big question. Can money buy happiness? I think everyone has an opinion on this. Some people say yes, definitely. Others say no, money is the root of all evil. It is such a complex subject.
It really is. And for our listeners practicing their B1 English, this is a great topic because we will use words related to lifestyle, emotions, and daily habits. So, Ria, let me start by asking you a direct question. If I gave you $1 million right now, right this second, would you be happier?
Wow, $1 million? That is a lot of money. Honestly, Tom, my immediate reaction is yes, absolutely. I would feel amazing. I would probably jump up and down and scream.
I think most of us would. But let's think about it deeper. Why would you be happy? What is the first thing you imagine doing with that money?
Well, first, I would pay off all my bills. That would take away so much stress. Then I would probably buy a nice house for my family. Maybe a house with a big garden, because I love gardening. And then I would book a huge vacation, maybe to Italy or Japan. Just thinking about it makes me smile.
See, that is the interesting part. You mentioned removing stress and having new experiences. But let me play the devil's advocate here. Do you think that excitement would last forever? Let's say you buy the house, you go on the trip. 2 years later, are you still jumping up and down with joy every day?
That's a really good point. I guess not. After a while, the big house just becomes my house. The cleaning would take forever, and the vacation would just be a memory. I suppose the initial thrill, that huge rush of excitement, would eventually fade away.
Exactly. Psychologists actually have a term for this. They call it the hedonic treadmill. It's a fancy term, but it basically means that humans quickly get used to their situation. If good things happen, we feel happy for a while, but then we return to our baseline or our normal level of happiness.
That makes so much sense. It's like when I bought my new phone last year. I wanted it so badly. For the first 2 weeks, I treated it like a baby. I was so careful. I loved looking at it. But now, it's just a tool. I drop it, I lose it in the sofa, and I don't even think about it anymore. The happiness didn't last.
That's the perfect example. Material things or physical objects rarely give us long-term happiness. But notice what you said earlier, Ria. You said you would pay off your bills. Now that's different. Research shows that money does buy happiness up to a certain point. If you're struggling to buy food or pay rent, money absolutely buys happiness because it buys security.
I agree completely. It's hard to be happy when you're worried about survival. So money removes the sadness of poverty, but maybe it doesn't guarantee the joy of a meaningful life.
Beautifully said. Money is like a foundation. You need a solid floor to stand on, but the floor doesn't make the party fun. The people and the music make the party fun.
I love that comparison. The floor is necessary, but it's not the main event. Tom, before we continue discussing how we spend our money, I think we should pause for a moment. We've used some interesting vocabulary in these first few minutes. Shall we review for our listeners?
That's a great idea. Let's look at 3 words or phrases that might be a little challenging from our conversation so far.
Okay, everyone, listen closely. Here are the 3 hardest words or phrases we just used. The first one is devil's advocate. Tom said, "Let me play the devil's advocate." This does not mean he is being evil. It's an idiom. It means to argue against an idea just to make the debate more interesting or to test the strength of the argument, even if you actually agree with the person. It's about looking at the opposite side.
Right. I actually agree with Rhea, but I wanted to challenge her. What's the second word, Rhea?
The second word is initial. I talked about the initial thrill. Initial means occurring at the beginning. It's the first feeling or the first stage of something. The initial cost might be high, but the long-term cost is low. The third word is baseline. Tom mentioned returning to our baseline. A baseline is a starting point or standard used for comparison. In this context, it means your normal, average mood. You might have a high day or a low day, but you always come back to your baseline.
Perfect explanations, Rhea.
Thanks, Tom. Now, I have a question for our listeners before we move on. I want you to answer this in your head or write it down. Here's the question. What is one thing you bought in the past that you thought would make you happy, but the excitement disappeared quickly? Think about that as we continue.
That is a great question to reflect on. Moving on, Rhea, let's talk about how we spend money. If buying things like phones and cars doesn't keep us happy, what should we spend our money on? Because we have to spend it on something.
Well, I have read a lot of articles that say spending money on experiences is better than spending money on possessions, like that trip to Italy I mentioned earlier. Even though the trip ends, the memory stays with you.
Yes, and memories actually tend to get better with time. We call that rosy retrospection. You might forget the delayed flight or the bad weather, but you remember the amazing pasta and the laughter. When you buy a luxury car, eventually it gets scratched or breaks down. It loses value, but an experience becomes part of who you are.
I feel that deeply. I went camping with my friends 5 years ago. It rained the whole time. We were wet and cold. But now, when we meet up, we laugh about that trip for hours. It is one of my favorite memories. If I had spent that money on a pair of expensive shoes, I probably would have thrown them away by now.
Exactly. The shoes don't connect you to other people. The camping trip connected you to your friends. And that brings us to another huge factor in happiness, connection. Humans are social animals. We need community.
So, are you saying we should use money to build relationships?
In a way, yes. Spending money on others, or spending money to do things with others, yields a much higher happiness return than spending on yourself. Have you ever bought a gift for someone, Rhea, and you were more excited to give it to them than they were to receive it?
Oh, yes. Last Christmas, I bought my nephew a bicycle. I was so excited to see his face. When he saw it, his eyes went wide and he screamed with joy. That moment made me feel so warm inside. It felt better than buying something for myself.
That warm glow is real. There was a study done where they gave people money. Half the people were told to spend it on themselves. The other half were told to spend it on someone else. At the end of the day, the people who spent it on others reported feeling significantly happier.
That is incredible. It's counterintuitive, isn't it? We think, if I keep the money, I gain something. But actually, by giving it away, we gain happiness. It reminds me of the saying, it is better to give than to receive.
It's true. But let's be realistic, Rhea. It's hard to be generous if you're worried about your own bills. We have to find a balance. What about the trap of comparison? I think social media makes this very hard.
Oh, social media is the worst for this. You scroll through Instagram and you see people on private jets or wearing designer clothes or eating at fancy restaurants. You look at your own life and think, why isn't my life that glamorous? It makes you feel poor even if you're doing okay.
Comparison is the thief of joy. That's a famous quote by Theodore Roosevelt. When you compare your behind the scenes with everyone else's highlight reel, you're destined to lose. You don't see their credit card debt. You don't see their arguments. You only see the photo.
That is such an important reminder. We assume rich people have perfect lives, but I've read stories about lottery winners who actually became miserable. They lost their friends because everyone just wanted money from them. They lost their sense of purpose because they didn't have to work anymore.
Work is another interesting piece of the puzzle. A lot of people dream of retiring at 30, doing nothing, just sitting on a beach. But I think that would get boring very fast. We need purpose. We need challenges.
I agree. I had a week off work last month where I had no plans. The first 2 days were great. I slept in, I watched movies, but by day 4, I felt a bit sluggish. I felt unmotivated. I missed the satisfaction of finishing a task or helping a colleague.
So maybe the goal isn't to have so much money that you do nothing. Maybe the goal is to have enough money so that you can choose the work you want to do rather than the work you have to do.
That is the dream. Financial freedom isn't about buying a yacht. It is about ownership of your time. If you have enough savings, you can say no to a job you hate. You can spend more time with your children. You can pursue a hobby. That is real wealth.
Time. That is the ultimate currency, isn't it? Money can technically buy time. For example, if you pay someone to clean your house, you are buying back those 2 hours to do something else.
That is a great way to look at it. I never thought about it like that. Instead of buying a new purse, I could pay for a service that gives me free time to read or walk in the park. That seems like a much smarter investment for happiness.
It definitely is. Okay, Ria, we have covered some deep concepts here, comparing ourselves to others, the value of time versus things, and the joy of giving. I think it is time for another pause to help our listeners digest this vocabulary.
You're right, Tom. We've used some excellent B1 and B2 level words in this section. Let's break down the 3 hardest ones from the last few minutes.
Go ahead, Ria.
Okay, listener friends, the first word for this section is counterintuitive. I said that giving money away to gain happiness is counterintuitive. This is an adjective. It describes something that feels opposite to what your common sense tells you. You expect one result, but you get the opposite.
A great word. Very useful in academic discussions, too. What is the second one?
The second phrase is the thief of joy. Tom used the quote, "Comparison is the thief of joy." A thief is someone who steals, so this metaphor means that when you compare yourself to others, it steals or takes away your happiness. It robs you of your satisfaction.
And the third?
The third word is sluggish. I said I felt sluggish after 4 days of doing nothing. Sluggish means slow, lazy, or lacking energy. It comes from the word slug, which is a slow-moving little creature in the garden. If you feel sluggish, you feel heavy and slow.
Excellent. I often feel sluggish after a big lunch.
Me too. Okay, here is my question for the listeners for this section. Think about your own spending habits. Do you spend more money on products, things you can hold, or experiences, things you can do? Which one usually makes you happier? Try to answer that in a full sentence.
Okay, we are back. Ria, I want to pivot the conversation slightly. We have talked a lot about spending, but what about saving? Does having a full bank account make people happy, even if they don't spend it?
That is interesting. I think for me, yes. Seeing a safety net in my bank account gives me peace of mind, and peace of mind is a huge part of happiness. If I have zero savings, I feel anxious. I feel on edge.
So saving money is actually buying anti-anxiety.
Yes, exactly. It's buying a good night's sleep. I remember when I was a student, I had very little money. If my car made a strange noise, I would panic. I would lose sleep worrying about the repair cost. Now that I have an emergency fund, if the car breaks, I'm annoyed, but I'm not devastated. The problem is just an inconvenience, not a disaster.
That distinction is vital. Money turns disasters into inconveniences. That's a powerful form of happiness, or at least a reduction of suffering. But Ria, is there a danger in saving too much? Can someone become obsessed with the number in the bank?
Oh, for sure. We all know characters like Scrooge, right? People who are so afraid of losing money that they never enjoy it. They live in a cold house, eat cheap food, and never help anyone just to see the number go up. That's not a rich life. That's a poor life with a lot of money.
That's a profound distinction. Being rich versus having a lot of money, they are not the same thing. You can be rich in friends, rich in health, rich in experiences, but poor in cash. Or you can be a billionaire who is lonely and unhealthy.
I think the sweet spot, or the perfect balance, is having enough money to cover your needs and some wants without becoming a slave to the money. You own the money. The money shouldn't own you.
The money shouldn't own you. I like that. So how do we practice that? How do we keep a healthy relationship with money?
I think gratitude is key. Being thankful for what you already have. We live in a consumer culture that is always shouting, you need more, you need the new version, you are not enough. Gratitude quiets that noise. It helps you say, actually, I have a warm coat, I have food in the fridge, I'm okay.
Gratitude changes your perspective. Instead of looking at what you lack, you look at what you possess. It sounds simple, but it's hard to do when we're bombarded with advertisements every day.
It takes practice. I try to write down 3 things I'm grateful for every morning. Sometimes they're free things, like a sunshine or a good cup of coffee. It reminds me that the best things in life aren't things you buy in a store.
That cliche is true. The best things in life are free. Love, laughter, fresh air, a good conversation, like this one.
Exactly. This conversation didn't cost us anything, but it is valuable. Tom, what about the idea of retail therapy? When people feel sad, so they go shopping to cheer themselves up. Does that work?
Short term, yes. Long term, no. It goes back to that dopamine hit. You buy the dress, you feel a spark of joy, but if you bought the dress because you were lonely, the dress won't cure the loneliness. Once you hang it in the closet, the loneliness comes back, and now you have less money, which might make you stressed. It can become a vicious cycle.
A vicious cycle. That is a dangerous loop. I have definitely been guilty of that. I had a bad day at work. I deserve this expensive coffee and cake. It feels good for 10 minutes, but it doesn't solve the problem at work.
Right. It is a coping mechanism, not a solution. Real happiness usually comes from internal growth, not external acquisition. Learning a new skill, for example. If you learn how to play the guitar, that satisfaction stays with you forever. No one can take it away.
And learning English.
Yes, precisely. Our listeners are investing their time right now in a skill. That is an investment in themselves. And unlike a car that gets old and rusty, language skills get better and more valuable the more you use them.
That is so motivating. Every word you learn opens up a new part of the world. You can talk to new people, understand new movies, travel with more confidence. That is a very high return on investment.
I think we're approaching another break point, Ria. We've introduced some more complex ideas about psychology and behavior here. Shall we do our summary?
Let's do it. I love these summaries. They really help to lock in the learning.
Great. What are the 3 words for this segment?
Okay, listen up. The first phrase is peace of mind. I said saving money gives me peace of mind. This means a feeling of being safe, calm, and not worried. You are mentally at rest because you know things are under control.
A beautiful state of being. And the second?
The second phrase is vicious cycle. Tom mentioned a vicious cycle of spending. This describes a situation where one problem causes another problem, which then makes the first problem worse. It's a loop of negative events that is hard to stop.
Like spending money because you're sad, then being sad because you have no money, so you spend more.
Exactly. And the third word is acquisition. Tom talked about external acquisition. To acquire means to get or to buy. Acquisition is the noun. It means the act of getting something, usually a possession or an object.
Perfect. And your question for the audience?
My question is this. We talked about gratitude. What is one thing in your life right now that is free but brings you a lot of happiness? It could be a person, a hobby, or a place.
I would say a walk in the park for me. Totally free, totally relaxing.
For me, it's playing with my dog. He's always so happy to see me.
Ria, as we start to wrap up this episode, I want to try and summarize the truth about money and happiness. It seems like the truth is complicated.
It is. It's not a simple yes or no. It seems that money is a tool. If you use it to build a secure life, help others, and buy freedom of time, it creates happiness. But if you use it to impress others or try to fill an emotional hole, it leads to emptiness.
That is a brilliant summary. It's about intention. Why are you spending? Are you spending to grow or are you spending to escape?
And also recognizing that happiness is not a destination. You don't arrive at happiness when you get $1 million. Happiness is a way of traveling. It's how you live your daily life. The small moments, the cups of tea, the chats with friends.
And for our English learners, I think there is a parallel here. Many students think I will be happy when I'm fluent. They stress about the destination. But the joy should be in the journey. The joy should be in understanding one new sentence today.
Yes, don't wait until you're perfect to enjoy English. Enjoy the process. Enjoy the mistakes. Laugh at them. Just like money, if you obsess over the end goal, you miss the life happening right now.
Well, I feel much wiser after this conversation, Ria.
Me too, Tom. I'm going to think twice before I buy that new jacket I was looking at online. Maybe I'll call my sister instead.
Sounds like a better investment. To our listeners, thank you for joining us on Real English Voices. We hope this conversation gave you some new vocabulary and, more importantly, some new things to think about regarding your own life and happiness.
We would love to hear your thoughts. If you can, practice your English by answering the questions we asked in the summaries. What brings you joy?
Keep listening, keep practicing, and remember, the most valuable currency you have is your time. Thank you for spending some of it with us.
Bye, everyone. See you in the next episode.
Goodbye.